for that style. And to me, if you want to play those oldies and you really want to do authentic, I wouldn't just worry about your amp. I wouldn't just worry about your pickups, whether you have a maple or rosewood neck, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying they're particularly the amp and the pickups you might think are important, but that neck radius is critical. Everybody, I want to talk a little bit about the neck radius of a guitar. This has a 7.25 neck radius, which is not all that common these days. It was the sort of standard Fender neck radius for a long time, but I'm going to give some of my general thoughts on a 7.25 neck radius as opposed to some of the ones you tend to see more often now, like a 9 point whatever it is now on a lot of Fenders. I hope you'll consider watching. But when I got this, I'd been reading about it, and I was pretty interested in the neck radius. So, the neck radius, the smaller the neck radius is, the more of an arc you get in the neck. So there's a arc in the neck, right? And so the smaller the neck radius is, the smaller the circle is. So when you plug that guitar into the top of the circle, if it's a smaller circle, it's going to have a bigger radius. So like a 9-inch radius is going to have a little flatter arc. A 12-inch radius, there'll be a little flatter arc. 16-inch radius, that's almost flat. And then some classical guitars, I think, are just playing flat like a plane. But for some reason, these old guitars tend to have a 7.25 radius, which means they have that kind of hill. So if you think about it, your low strings and your high strings are kind of on the slopes of the hill, and then the D and the G strings would they're up towards the top of the arc. So when you push down on them, they're going to hit the fretboard sooner than the edges of the strings, the low E and A and the low E and B. And like I said, it's not like I'm sure I've played 7.25 guitars when I was a kid, but I didn't really think anything about it. But the one thing I thought about it, what they always say about a 7.25 radius is they're great for rhythm. And as soon as I got this, I found that out. I think it's true. You can play lead. Clapton's Brownie is a 7.25 radius, so that's what he played Layla on. Blackie was a 7.25 radius. You can play leads on a... but, if you think about it, Clapton's kind of an old school guitar player, and that's probably how he learned. I think a lot of that shredding, sweeping arpeggios, that's the kind of stuff where the neck radius really starts to affect you. And this is different. And this is different. But what I was going to say, my main point, is that there is a certain sound that I find when I play rhythm down here. It's got a certain snap to it. I think there's something about it. The strings feel kind of tight and snappy and ringy when you play down here in chords. So yeah, if your focus is, how can I finger tap and and do all these sweeping arpeggios and all this shredding. You probably still could do it on this. But, music is a lot of things. And if you think about a lot of that old music, it was all great rhythm. And including people like Clapton, they're so famous for playing lead. But he's a great rhythm guitar player. And these things are great for... And I notice it, all my 9.25 guitars, I'm always a little bit... they never seem to ring as well on rhythm. Now, I've got those Highway 1s do a damn good job on rhythm. But this one's better. And it reminds me, there's that certain ring. I don't know. I do feel like it's kind of related to the neck radius. There's a certain ring. That real kind of ringy Fender sound. I think part of it, that kind of snap back when you play a rhythm like "Let It Rain" or some of those old Clapton songs. That's what a 7.25 radius is better at. So it's not just some vintage spec to be authentic to the original. For a lot of that 50s and 60s rock and roll, I think the 7.25 radius is better for a lot of things. That 7.25 radius, it gives you that... You gotta sing the blues if you gotta pay your dues if you wanna sing the blues, and you know it don't come easy. That to me is a 7. You can hear it, and I was thinking about "Let It Rain" for some reason. It's got that. That's got that snap to it, and a lot of times I'll hear people play that even on YouTube, professionals, and I don't think they're playing it on a 7.25 radius, because I think that is an example of that rhythm sound, that real kind of snappy old Fender sound. So my theory is that the 7.25 radius was a critical factor in a lot of those old 50s and 60s sounds. It wasn't just their pickups. And it's something about the way that rhythm snaps back at you with the 7.25 radius. But I feel like that's true, because, and sometimes with those old vintage guitars, that people talk about the pickups and everything, but that neck radius on those old Fenders, I think, was important to the sound of those old, like, Clapton albums, where they just sounded so good, And a lot of times it was the rhythm. And that stuff he did with Delaney and Bonnie, Delaney Bramlett co-wrote "Let It Rain," and so he played a telly a lot. And that's the if he was playing a telly back then, it was probably 7.25 radius. They have a different sound for rhythm, and that kind of, and especially those open chords down here. And something else is, a lot of those guitar players back then learned on acoustic guitars, which is something I think every guitar player should do. But their orientation, even when they went to electric, was they still played a lot of D chords, G chords, C chords, F chords, and the 7.25 radius is great for that. I don't get anywhere with it. Got a cool little chick named Rockin' Billy. Walking, strolling, Susie Q. Do that crazy hand jive too. And jive, and jive, and jive. Do that crazy hand jive. Mama, look at Sister Flo. Doing the hand jive within the road. Walking, strolling, Susie Q. Do that crazy hand jive too. and jive, and jive, and jive to the crazy and jive. You know, Stephen Stills, stuff like that. Listen to Stephen Stills. It's got that real tight, snappy sound. Just great. And I'm pretty sure you couldn't get that with one of these shredder guitars, that real kind of tight, snappy. I say the jumbo frets on my Highway 1 are kind of like a bungee cable. They're kind of elastic like a bungee cable. This is elastic like tight underpants. Everything's just kind of, it's elastic. It snaps back at you, but it's kind of tight, you know. That Highway 1, those jumbo frets are great, but it's kind of like a bungee cord. It's just, oh, you can stretch them out. This thing's tight, but for rhythms, it's great. And there's also something about the neck and the way that arc is. I noticed when I hit the E and the B string, like playing an E, and how much old rock and roll was in E, and they were playing those with old acoustic guitar E chords. It just snaps at you. And also, I know you can kind of open up and play in the key of E, really, for some reason. I don't know what it is about E. Everything just rings. Train ride, 16 coaches long. Train ride, 16 coaches long. Well, that long black train. That's all 7.25 radius stuff. I don't think it would sound the same on a Les Paul. I'm sure people do it, and I'm sure it's fine, but that's Fender 7.25 neck radius music. Well, that Elvis did that Mystery Train, but the band does it great on The Last Waltz with Paul Butterfield, by the way. And I wouldn't be surprised if Robbie Robertson's Strat he played all the time in that band was a 7.25 neck radius. That's old school. And all those guys played a lot of rhythm. They did their leads, and they were always great. But they were overall guitar players, and the rhythms, I noticed I could play an F. I noticed I could play an F. You know, a lot of those, like, I'm crazy. Crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy. Crazy for feeling so blue. I knew. You play an F. See, that's better than any guitar I have to play like an F. And I don't mean like F up here. I mean like acoustic guitar F, which, by the way, is a great key. I think underappreciated. But Willie Nelson's got some good songs in F. And Faraway Eyes by the Stones, I think, is an F, right? It's a good country key, really. And I think, but you can play F on this. And you know what? A lot of electric guitars will be too fussy. this thing, I don't know what it is. I want to say it's intonation, but I don't. But a lot of those guitars, you can tune them up, but when you start playing down here, it won't sound. You're always fussing with it. This thing. So playing down here, you can play an F. Here's G. G is just a dream. That's the key of God, right? G for God. God's. But D, the rain is falling through the mist of sorrow that has surrounded me. The sun could never dry away the bliss that laid around me. Let it rain, let it rain, let your love rain down on me. Let it rain. Just terrific. But I'm telling you, you can just relax and play, and there's a kind of bounce, and I'm feeling it. It's hard to describe, but I'm feeling it. There's something about the way my hand is on that D chord, and that G chord issues, that G string issue that you always hear about. It doesn't seem as big a deal to me. This thing, listen to that. Now, some of that just might be because it's a good guitar. You know, these Fender 70th anniversary Esquires, I saw several people say they're almost like custom shop guitars. I mean, they get the personal attention. They've got that nameplate on the back, and all the screws are flathead. They really went into it. But so some of that just might be it's really well calibrated guitar intonation. But I think some of it's that neck radius, because I don't just think in the Fender, Telecasters always have the best intonation of any guitar. And intonation is one of the most important things of a guitar, obviously, but I sometimes think it's not that appreciated. But I think a lot of times if you're always playing up here, like Stevie Vai or something, and sometimes, hey, I just want to play a nice Roy Orbison song or a old Willie Nelson song or some old Yardbirds or something where you're playing down here, and all of a sudden, it's nice to have one of these old guitars because they do a better job on those open chords down here. It's hard to explain it, either technically or, it's like trying to explain to someone what it's like to eat a marshmallow. You kind of, but when you start to play one, you feel it. It's kind of tight and snappy. And I really like this guitar. And I think it is what they say. It's a vintage guitar, and I happen to like 50s and 60s music a lot. And this one is perfect for it. If I want to play Bridge of Sighs or something, I'll probably go to my Highway 1. But for that old Fender stuff, and a lot of that was played by great rhythm guitar players down in this part of the neck, I'd get a 725, and I don't just think it's a personal preference. I think there's something different about the way those strings snap, and maybe the way your fingers rest. It might be how your fingers just naturally rest on the keys, so you're not. I don't know, and somehow that creates a better intonation or something about that 7.25 and having that arc. It really enhances rhythm playing. So give it a shot. Thanks. God bless.